Hello, my name is Bud Wright, and I'm a transportation policy consultant and former senior Federal Highway Administration executive. It's a pleasure to spend a few minutes with you today as part of this unprecedented virtual conference to talk about the importance of investment in highway safety. As local or state transportation officials, or as like me on the other side of the fence in the private industry, all of you in this audience have priorities to juggle on a daily basis. I understand that and appreciate the fact that all of us operate with extremely limited resources available to meet ever-growing needs. But I hope each of us, as we carry out our duties, can step back from the day-to-day and recognize that improving safety on the facilities that we own, operate, and maintain must be a priority. It's not just about paying lip service for the sake of feeling good about ourselves or towing a company or agency line. It's about saving the lives of members of our communities, indeed saving the lives of our families and our friends. Let's review the numbers that many of you may already be familiar with. Last year, more than 32,000 Americans lost their lives in motor vehicle crashes. Amazingly, this number of fatalities meant that the highway fatality rate in the U.S. was at an all-time low. I suppose one could say this is relatively good news because as recently as 2005, there were more than 43,000 fatalities in this country, and shockingly, in 1973, more than 55,000 Americans lost their lives in highway crashes. So we have done some things well over the last several decades, and especially in recent years. But nonetheless, we have to refocus our efforts off the numbers and remember that what we're actually talking about are people. That 32,000 figure and the much larger number in recent years are made up of someone's sons and daughters, friends and family, loved ones, and neighbors. And when you think of it that way, we have no choice but to do everything in our power to continue to systematically address this epidemic that creates unnecessary grief and forever changes the lives of survivors. An epidemic that costs our society as much as $300 billion per year based on a recent AAA report. $300 billion. In the context of the national debate that's occurring regarding the role of government and the value of public and private investment, imagine if we had that amount of funding each year to apply toward productive purposes. Fortunately for those of us in the transportation safety industry and as transportation safety practitioners, the pieces are in place for us to succeed. There are strategies and approaches for effectively investing in transportation safety, and new ones continue to emerge. You will hear about many of these strategies over the course of this virtual conference. In the just passed federal surface transportation legislation, MAP 21, takes several important steps toward refocusing highway safety as a national highway priority. I'd like to briefly describe some elements of MAP 21 that are important to highway safety and then conclude my presentation with some points regarding the importance of having a strategic approach to our highway safety investments if we are truly serious about making a difference. First, let's start with MAP 21. Even with significant program consolidation and relative stability in funding that's in MAP 21, that bill retains and strengthens the Federal Highway Safety Improvement Program, or HSIP, essentially doubling the average annual HSIP funding from around $1.2 billion per year to $2.4 billion. There's no question that members of Congress saw something positive happening in the highway safety arena, and driven by that, they were willing to invest an even greater amount going forward in order to see further dividends in reducing fatalities and reducing and preventing injuries. The HSIP emphasizes a data-driven, strategic approach to improving highway safety on all public roads. The foundation for this is safety data systems, which each state is required to have to identify key safety problems, establish their relative severity, and then adopt strategic and performance-based goals to link targeted safety investments to where the data suggests the most serious problems lie. Every state now has an SHSP in place, and MAP 21 ensures progress going forward toward achieving safety targets by requiring regular plan updates and defining a clear linkage between behavioral programs funded by NHTSA and the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. These plans are the foundation of our future success in effectively addressing highway safety in this country. The U.S. has an extensive transportation network. Over 30,000 state and local governments own and operate more than 4 million miles of roadways. Although the state DOTs are responsible for leading the development of the SHSP, each state's plan must cover all public roadways within the state's boundaries. Because most of the federal aid highway program is focused on larger roadways, mostly state-owned, the fact that the SHSP addresses all public roads is important, and HSIP funds can be spent on any public road. And given that on average only about 30 to 35% of the roadway network is owned by the states, this emphasis on all roadways is critical to reducing roadway fatalities and reducing injuries. Under MAP 21, the SHSP remains a statewide coordinated plan developed in cooperation with a broad range of multidisciplinary stakeholders. All of you have a role in highway safety, whether as an elected official, a senior program manager, or a hands-on roadway safety worker, need to find a way to play in and influence this process within your state. The decisions reached using data analyzed for the Strategic Highway Safety Plan will determine whether or not available resources are used to their maximum possible benefit. Probably the most significant shift embodied in MAP 21 is the emphasis on performance management. MAP 21 establishes an unprecedented performance management process aimed at ensuring that future federal investments achieve specific national objectives. The new law identifies 7 national surface transportation goals, with safety being one of the critical areas for which performance will be measured. The U.S. Secretary of Transportation is directed to create within 18 months performance measures and standards for several of the law's core programs to achieve these goals. The measures require the Secretary to consult with project owners and other stakeholders in the process. States are then required to develop performance targets within 1 year reflecting the performance measures and standards for each of the programs. States must then begin reporting on their progress toward achieving these targets within 4 years of the date of enactment in July of 2012. Each state will be required to set targets for the absolute number of serious injuries and fatalities, as well as for the number of injuries and fatalities per vehicle mile traveled. If a state fails to make adequate progress toward its safety targets, it will have to devote a certain portion of its valuable overall federal obligation limitation to the safety program and submit an annual implementation plan on how the state will make progress toward meeting this performance goal. But more important than the requirements associated with this new performance measure is that all of us as safety practitioners will have much better data from which to make program and project decisions, and will be in a better position to share best practices so that we can learn from one another's successes and occasionally failures. There are numerous proven safety countermeasures, many of which are low cost, that can be applied in a variety of circumstances and can often be tailored to meet specific needs. But I know from my own experience that many practitioners are more comfortable using a new safety approach only after it has been proven in another location. So sharing our experiences, good and bad, will enable us to do a better job of addressing transportation safety challenges. And another MAP 21 provision of importance is that the U.S. DOT Secretary is required to carry out a study of high-risk rural road best practices. This will no doubt result in better information becoming available to those of you responsible for making decisions on how to cost-effectively meet investment needs on roadways that carry low volumes of traffic. Many factors influence the dramatic improvement in highway safety in the U.S. between earlier decades and even between 2005 and today. Some factors seem more related than others to reductions in fatality. In particular, alcohol-impaired driving fatality reductions and young driver safety improvements have been more pronounced than overall safety improvements. These two factors, which are included in the majority of SHSPs, may have been critical in the overall improvement. But there can be no doubt that infrastructure safety spending, also related to SHSPs, tracks closely with reductions in fatalities, and has been and will continue to substantially contribute to our ongoing efforts to improve highway safety. A recent paper presented to the Transportation Research Board concluded that improved data and federal reporting requirements associated with HSIPs and with the Strategic Highway Safety Plans correlates strongly with fatality reductions in those states that have robust data systems. Mostly those systems contain many years of available crash data, a strong project prioritization method, and they use roadway inventory data. Let me conclude by leaving you with this thought. Who among us would not want to go home tonight and say to our spouse or children or significant other, "I saved a life today"? That's what we who are part of improving highway safety in the U.S., whether it be in work zones, at intersections, among pedestrians and bicyclists, or on low-volume rural roads, have an opportunity to do. The cost of us not succeeding is far too great to even contemplate. Let's all redouble our efforts in driving down the highway death toll toward zero. Let's all be a part of something that will truly change America. Thanks for your attention, and I hope you enjoy the many presentations by excellent presenters for the remainder of this virtual conference. Thanks.